We begin the current Daf Mesechtes Nedarim Daf Lamed Aleph. Begin on the top line of the Amid. We continue with these series of Mishnayos regarding when you set a certain terminology, what do you mean to include in the Neder? What is going to be included in the specific wording that you use? Something that's going to discuss in today's Daf are various terms, whether they refer to Yidden or Evdikachavim, when you're making a neder. So some of the terminologies that we're going to define are Shevsi Shabbos, B'nai Noach, Zera Avraham, Moilim, Arelim. We'll see that although the terminology might sound like one thing, it actually might mean something else. Kutim are they're actually, it's a machlekes in the Gemara. How do we qualify? They came from Kuth, which was from the 10 tribes when they were exiled, and they brought in the Assyrian king, brought in the Kutim. It's machlekes in the Gemara if they're considered as Yidden or not. Our Mishnah presumes that they are Yidden, but they didn't fulfill every single mitzvah, and therefore there's going to be ramifications regarding some of the terminologies that we're going to describe. And the Daf is going to end up with a lot of Agadic teachings regarding Bris Milah, how great circumcision is. So begin, actually one more thing, regarding selling merchandise, it's going to be actually pretty complex. So it's going to be one of those parts of the Daf that you're going to have to really focus on, regarding 3 levels of demand when you're selling merchandise. This is what's called Zvina Derame Alape. Zvina Derame Alape means to say it's like on the guy's face. The guy is low demand. The seller has to sell. It's a buyer's market. So that's actually going to be considered Hanoah's Moicher, because it's going to be very relevant when we take a neder of prohibiting Hanoah. Someone brought this up the other day, when you're selling an item, is that considered getting benefits? I'm paying the money. Who's getting the benefit? So when it's a low demand, it's actually the benefit of the Moicher. He's getting the Hanoah. When it's what's called Zvin Chalif, when there's high demand, it's a seller's market. So it's Hanoah's Lekeach. Means say who's getting the benefit is the buyer, because you're getting lucky and you're getting to buy this house. So and not the moicher. Whereas bezvina mitzvah, which is a moderate demand, so actually then it's tarvayu mishani. Both are getting benefit, the seller and the buyer, which obviously be very relevant when you're taking isser of hana on the neder. Who's actually getting the hana when there's a sale happening? We're going to discuss in today's daf. So begin the current daf. Daf lamed aleph on top line of the Amid, continuing the theme of these mishnayos regarding what do you mean when you're saying these words. A lot of the rans of these mishnayos are all on Lamed ben Aleph. So the Tana says like this: if someone takes a neder, prohibiting himself from having benefit from those who keep Shabbos. It doesn't say keeping, but that's I'm translating. Shayfsei Shabbos. Says the Mishnah. So Asabi Yisrael, he's not allowed to benefit from a Jew. Obviously, a Jew is Shayfsei Shabbos. And V'asar b'kutim, he's also prohibited from having benefit from the kutim, which both Yisrael and the kutim are commanded are keeping Shabbos. The kutim officially were gerim, and also they both fulfilled Shabbos. So the mitzvah and they fulfilled it. So therefore they're called Shayfsei Shabbos. They are the ones who rest on Shabbos. So you're forbidden to have benefit from them. Let's say you said Ma'ichlei Shum, from those who eat garlic on Friday night. What is that? Ezra was masakin to eat garlic on Friday night. Why do people have garlic on Friday night? Because garlic actually increases the semen. And the most ideal time, which Talmid Chacham have of having intimacy, is on Friday night. So then you want to increase the ability of procreating. So therefore, Ezra was masakin to eat garlic. So if he says, I'm not having any benefit from someone that eats garlic, so again, Asabi Yisrael, he's prohibited to have benefit from a Jew, and Asabi Kutim, he's prohibited to have benefit from the Kutim, because they also ate garlic on Friday night, just like everyone did from the Takanas of Ezra. But this is where it changes. Says the Tana of the Mishnah, let's say he says, I'm not going to have any benefit from my Oili Yerushalayim. Those who go are Oila L'Regel, they do the pilgrimages 3 times a year on the Yom Tov, on the Shalosh Regalim to Yerushalayim. Then he's Asabi Yisrael. Then he's prohibited to have benefit from a Jew because they're commanded to go up, and they actually go up. But a Mutbekutim, he would be permitted to have benefit from a Kutim, because although they're commanded to go up by the Shalosh Regalim, they actually don't go up. So they're not considered the Oile Yerushalayim. So therefore, they would be permitted to have benefit of them. Okay. Says the Gemara, my Shayfsei Shabbos. What does it mean, those who rest on Shabbos? As the Gemara explains. If you think to say, it means to say those who keep Shabbos. So my idiot bekutim. Why are you saying that included are only the kufiyim? Then even an idol worshiper, if he keeps Shabbos, as the Ran explains, in other words, you should have said it's forbidden for those who keep Shabbos, so that you could even include idol worshippers who are the Sabbath, they rest on the Sabbath. So why would that only include kutim, if it just means those who fulfill? If those who fulfill it, so it could be non-Jews too. No, Ella, what are you going to tell me? It means mimitzuv mal Shabbos. You mean to say those who are commanded regarding Shabbos. But that obviously does not include idol worship, but they don't have mitzvah Shabbos. But if that's the case, then ihachi ema seifa. So if you're talking about that, the criterion is those who are commanded, not those who fulfill. So look at the ema seifa. The last case we said in the Mishnah was me'uli Yerushalayim, from those who go and are oiler regel on the Yom Tov. So you told me that if you took a neder from such a person, asab Yisrael, you're forbidden from a Jew, umut bekutim, but you're permitted to have been from the kutim. So I understand the kutim don't go up, but amai, who cares? Then you told me the main criteria are those who command and not those who keep it. So then you should be usher in the kutim too. So then Abaye says, no, actually means two criterion. Mitzvah v'oisagatani. What we meant was those who are commanded and those who fulfill. In other words, that's what is meant when the person says this. Oh, okay, so the Gemara explains. But Tarti Kamaisa, by the first two cases of our Mishnah. In other words, when you take a neder from Shvisa Shabbos, from those who rest on Shabbos, and Vachila Shamab eating garlic, okay, Yisrael v'kutim, both of them, mitzvah v'oisim, they're commanded, because again, the kutim are regular gerim, and they do it. Whereas idol worshippers, even those who are the Sabbath resters, even though they're going to rest, but they're not commanded, so not included in the category of Shvisa Shabbos. Now, ba'oile Yerushalayim, those who are oile regel to Yerushalayim, Yisrael amitzvah moisin. Regular Jews, they're commanded and they do it. Kutim mitzuvim ve'inam oisim, but the kutim they commanded but they don't do. So again, because it's two criterion, so therefore we're always excluding ayivdei kechavim because they're never commanded, and we're going to exclude kutim from oile regel because although they're mitzvah, but they're not oisa, in contrast to the cases of the reish. Now we continue with the next Mishnah. Again, continuing on the same theme of what's included when you're saying a certain terminology. Kainim, if someone says, I'm taking an isser of a carbon meaning isser hanoah, she'einin enel b'nei noach, that I'm not going to have benefit for b'nei noach, so mutta b'it Yisrael, he's permitted to have benefit from a Jew, which, as the Gemara will explain, although Yisrael are b'nei noach, because Avram Avinu came from the family of Noach, obviously the whole world came from Noach, but once Avram Avinu was sanctified, we're called based on him, and we're not called on any more of the Zayda Noach, and therefore, you're permitted to have benefit from a Jew, but also you'd be forbidden to have benefit from a non-Jew. So the Gemara asked the question, what do you mean? Are Jews excluded from the categories of the sons of Noach? The whole world came from Noach. So if you say B'nai Noach, why would a Jew not be included? Says the Gemara, once Avram was sanctified, we became a whole new nation. Iskud al-Shmei, they're called on his name. He's the Zayd Avram. We don't say the Zayd Noach. That's not, we don't associate ourselves as B'nai Noach. Similarly, says the next Mishnah. Let's say someone says, She'eni nena lazer Avram. I'm not going to have benefit for the descendants of Avram. So again, Asabi Yisrael, then he'll be forbidden for a Jew. He'll be permitted for an idol worshiper. What's the chiddush in that? Of course. So as the Gemara is going to explain, even the Bnei Yishmael ve'Esav, who are Zera Avram, are not going to be included in the Esav the Neder. Which the Gemara asks, why? Boki Yishmael, but is Yishmael, so why are you allowed to have benefit from old non-Jews? But they're also the descendants of Avram. No, says the Pasuk in Bereshis, Ki Yitzchak yikarach lazer gzer. Hashem tells Avram, in Yitzchak your descendants are going to be called. Yishmael is not called Zer Avram. What do you do with the whole America, with Rome, with the Edom? The Esav is the Zer Avram. How are you allowed to benefit from a non-Jew? No, be Yitzchak v'lo kol Yitzchak. It doesn't say Yitzchak yikarach lazer. In Yitzchak, meaning not all of Yitzchak. In Yitzchak, meaning Yaakov, and not Esav. Esav is not considered Zera Avram, and therefore you're permitted to have benefit from a non-Jew. Continues the next Mishnah. If let's say someone takes a neder, she'eni neder Yisrael, I'm not going to have benefit from a Jew. It gets a little bit complicated over here. So you're going to have to halkab till a little bit into Amud Beis. So what's the halach? Again, you took a neder, you're not having benefit from a Jew. Says the Mishnah, what you have to do is as follows. So, loikeach beyoser. You have to overpay. Why do you have to overpay? So that when you're buying, you don't have benefit from them, what you're buying from them. So you have a great product, you're buying, you have benefit. You're not benefit from a Jew. So you're going to the store. You have to make sure you overpay. You overpay, you're not getting any benefit. You think I'm getting anything out of it? I paid you twice the amount that's worth, not benefit. Now, when you're selling, you're also getting benefit. You're making money, make panosa. No, right? You have to sell beneath the market value, which Jews would be very happy to get that out of you, right? You sell for below market price, so that you don't have benefit from them that you're selling it to them. Now, the Gemara is going to explain that our Mishnah is talking about what's called a zvina mitziasa, a medium grade, what's called a moderate demand, where there's benefit for the buyer and for the seller whenever it's sold for market value. So therefore, if you're a seller or a buyer, you're going to have benefit. So make sure you undersell and overpay when you're selling and buying. Now, so just the Ran clarifies one thing. He says that when we say that if, however, you undersell or overpay, it's permitted, that's specifically when he makes it forbidden on himself that he's not going to benefit from a nachayid, from another Jew. Where in such a case, you're not considered having benefit from him. But if, let's say, he prohibited on himself their nechasim, we discussed this a little bit the other day, nichseihem, their stuff are forbidden to him, then even if he buys something worth 100 for 200, he's not allowed to have benefit from what he's buying from that person because his neder took effect on the nechasim. So that would still make it prohibited. But if it just says, in general, I'm not going to have benefit, that's not considered a benefit. If you're overpaying out of your nose, or you're selling and you're losing your pants on the sale, that would not be considered having benefit, and that would be permitted.
Not losing your pants. You're selling it below market. In other words, you buy it for 170.
Oh, so that depends.
Selling for 190, that's okay. But,
right, yes, London.
Yeah, but no, because otherwise you have to lose your pants. That means you cannot sell it for more than 100.
Right, you wouldn't be selling if that was happening.
You wouldn't be selling,
right?
So there's no reason.
Right. So that's a chiddush. So that's not considered having hana. Right, that's a chiddush, right? So that's, you have to know what the sugya. What they, yeah, he said. No, but it's a good question. You have to really know, once you get into the real depth of the sugya, what's considered having hana. So you're selling below market value. That's considered not having hana. You are having hana. Does it mean losing money? Does it mean just not making as much as everyone else? So you have to know exactly how to qualify this. So this is if, let's say, he says, I'm not going to have benefit from a Yisrael. Let's say he says that she Yisrael nen and li, that a Yitcha benefit from me. In other words, he's prohibiting his benefit on all other Jews. He says, no Jew is going to have any benefit from me. I'm taking not one Yid. So, in other words, here he has no way to remedy, again, buy or sell to another Yid, only if there's the opposite now. If lekech bepachas, he has to buy below market value from another Yid, and he has to be able to sell overcharge other Yidden to make them lose money when they're buying from him, because or else they're going to have benefit from him. Now, so that they don't benefit from him. But the Mishnah tells us ve'ein shemeloi. But the people don't listen to him. Why would they listen to him? Why would they overpay or from him? Right? Now the Ram does say some of the gears are not ve'ein, but it takes out the end of nun. Ve'i shemeloi with a chirik. In other words, if they listen to him. But if not, then he has no way of remedying the situation. And even the Ran adds on, even let's say nechasim that he bought after his neder, where although we generally say you can't usually make something that never was around yet on someone else. So let's say you bought something, you bought from Amazon a whole shipment after you took the neder, so it wasn't yet yours. So it was shaloi b'la'olam. So still says the Ran, that's only when you're making something specific forbidden that wasn't here yet, like the fruits of a tree or the fruits that you're going to end up buying. Or let's say when he says that my nechasim are forbidden on you, where it's only forbidden only those nechasim that he has at that time. But when he makes all his hana forbidden on his friend, so since the isser of hana is dependent on him, not on his stuff, he's ba'olam, so it comes out that if he sells to those who are forbidden of the neder, the nechasim that he bought after that, for the market value, he's benefiting them, and therefore that would be forbidden. So this says the Ran is even stuff he buys afterwards. It's not his nechasim, it's himself. I'm not benefiting any Jew. So therefore, that would always be the case that he would have to overcharge them or underpay when he's buying from them. Again, but no one listens to him because why should they? Now, let's say he says both ways. I'm not going to take a penny from a Jew. I'm not going to give a penny to a Jew. So then, says the Mishnah, okay, then he could only benefit to non-Jews, which the Ram brings from the Ra'ah, So what's the chiddush? Is that you shouldn't say that since he made such a neder, so you can't withstand with such a neder. How can you live in society not benefiting from or to any single person? So maybe you would have thought to say it's similar to what we said in Daf Tezvav Medalf. That if someone swears that I'm not going to sleep for 3 days, we actually hit him and he goes to sleep right away because you can't survive like that. So it's not even qualified as a valid shvuam. So you would say something over here that right away he could go ahead and benefit because it's not something that you could withstand. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah that no, since there's a remedy by non-Jews, even though it's very difficult because you live in a Heimische Stadt, you live in New Square, and those guys to whatever, it doesn't make a difference. You could go do business with some non-Jews, and therefore it's not considered a shvuah shleish and gimel yamim. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah when it says siyahana la'ev dekacham. Now the Gemara is going to make it difficult now. So hold on a little bit. The Gemara is going to introduce a teaching that's going to relate back to the teaching of the Mishnah, and it's going to be trying to figure this out about who's having benefit when it comes to a sale. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, "Halikeach klei min ha'umen lavakre." Someone buys, he takes a vessel from the store, from the craftsman, to check it out. Once he is it good, he'll give the money. If not, he's just going to give back the vessel. So he's looking at this nice porcelain bowl, whatever it is. And what happened is, as it happens in stores, venenis biyada. As he's looking at it, it falls out of his hands, shatters on the ground. What's the halacha? What's the liability? Says Shmuel, chayiv. The person who is looking at it, the buyer, is liable to pay. Why? Says the Gemara, we see that Sabra Shmuel holds, hanois lekecher. This is where it gets complicated. The benefit of a sale is the benefit of the buyer, which the Gemara explains about Basta Pechesam and Aleph. It's talking about specifically when the price has been set. So you see on it that little tag that says $5,000. So therefore, the buyer is reliant that if he wants to buy it, he has that option, and it's like as if it's already sold because he knows how much it's going to cost. If you don't know how much it's going to cost, you're not, I don't know, maybe a guy wants to charge $5 million for it. Do I know? You go into these stores, who knows what they're going to ask from you. So I'm not so mechtaz, I'm not so confident, and therefore I'm not so invested. But since I know how much it's going to be, and if I want to, it's all my benefit. So therefore, Shmuel says you can be chayv in einzin. This is einus. This is somebody on the guy's control. Somebody it fell out of his hands. It wasn't the pshi. It wasn't. Now the reason is because by a sale, all the benefit goes to the buyer, not to the seller, and therefore he's like a shiur. A shiur is unique from all the daled shaimrim, from all the 4 types of custodians. He's chayv in einzin. Usually not chayv in einzin. The shiur, since kol hana shaloi, it's all his benefit. So he's chayv in einzin. Here also, the buyer is considered kol hana shaloi. You're the guy that's getting all the benefit over here. So there you can be chayiv in einzin. Now, although the round says the Gemara did not specify that Shmuel was talking about specifically when the price was set, that's okay. He's relying on the sugya in Parakas Svina. Just like over there, they're not concerned to explain that it's talking about specifically what's called the Zvina Charifa, when there's high demand, as we're going to shortly explain, which is a benefit specifically for the buyer, because that sugya is relying on our sugya over here, and our sugya over here is relying on over there. Okay, fine. That's a halach of Shmuel, which is really almost unrelated to what we're discussing. But you do see something from his halacha. From his halacha, you see that who's considered having the benefit from a sale is the buyer. And since he's getting all the benefit, we consider him like a shayel. He'll be chayv einzin. Frek the Gemara asks, wait a second. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah that says, she'eini nenemi Yisrael, that if someone says that I'm not going to benefit from a Jew, what do we say? We said, Meicher b'pachas. Okay, if you don't have benefit from a Jew, when you sell, you get benefit, make sure you sell below the market value. It sounds like avashav b'shava, but to sell for what the market value is, that you can't do. Wait a second. Why can't you sell for market value when you are not allowed to benefit from other Yidden? You can't sell them for market value. Why not? But if it's like you just told me from Shmuel, who gets the benefit from the sale? Is the buyer, the nashfila shava b'shava, that even for the market value, you should be able to sell, because you told me by a sale, there's no benefit for the moicher. There's no benefit for the seller, for the buyer. So why can't you sell for market value? So on that says the Gemara, Masnit in our Mishnah that said that the seller cannot sell even shav b'shav of the market value, which sounds like that the seller is going to get benefit, which sounded not like Shmuel, who says the buyer gets the benefit, is talking about what's called bezina derame al ape. We're talking about, it's like literally means to say it's on his face, means to say he doesn't know what to do with this property. There's a low demand for this property. Oh, okay. So if you're able to sell it for the market value, you're lucky. You're lucky as a seller. That's benefit for you because it's not easy to find a buyer, and it's not considered hanav l'keach. Why? Because no one's running to buy a house now, and it's a buyer's market. He can find a house wherever he wants to. He's not really getting so much benefit from the sale. Whereas Shmuel, who said who's getting the benefit is the lekeach, is talking about where there's a high demand, where it's a seller's market. Oh, if you're lucky and you win that bidding war and you get that house, that's the benefit of lekeach, because everyone's trying to chap. So the seller's not getting any benefit when he's selling it to you. I'm doing you a favor, right? I could sell it whenever he wants to. He can sell it. So this is very important, says the Gemara. Who's getting the benefit depends on the market. So it's not a contradiction. Shmuel, who says Hanos Lekeach, is talking about when there's a Zvina Chadifa, there's a high demand. When did our Mishnah say that if you sell Shav B'Shava would be a problem for the Meicher? It's talking about when there's a low demand. Low demand is Hanos Meicher. So therefore, you cannot sell it Shav B'Shava.
Did Tzvi say there's no sale that ever transacts that both the buyer and the seller are not happy? Meaning to say, even if you sell below market price, you wouldn't sell it unless you have that benefit, whether it's cash flow or whatever it is. You wouldn't actually.
Right. Okay, that's what she's bringing up. He wants to know, is there what's called benefit, and then there's benefit. In other words, to say there's hana, and then it's like, I'm not really getting any major hana. Is it a minor hana, major hana? When you consider the benefit from your item, is this guy giving you benefit? He's not giving you benefit. You're getting benefit, but you're not giving me benefit, because if I was getting something that I wouldn't be able to get from someone else, you're giving me a benefit. But if I could sell this to anyone, so you're not really giving me a benefit, right? The leker is getting benefit. Whereas if I really can't find anyone and you're the one willing to buy the house, you're giving me that benefit. So that would be one way of saying it. Yeah, it would require further analysis exactly.
It's still hana.
Right, in the chanami. But it's not, you're not giving me the hana. You're not giving me the hana because I have 10 people waiting behind you. Sir, if you're done, I have 10 people. You understand what I'm trying to say? You're not giving me that benefit. But that's the point. The point is you're not giving me the benefit because I have 10 people behind you.
If you sell below market value, you're making a profit. You are getting a benefit. You're not getting the best deal.
Right. You're saying regarding the idea about when it's which case are we talking about? Let's say
it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter. Whoever, if a guy says I'm vowing not to take benefit from the seller, and no matter what happens, it's still a no.
But I'm saying I'm not really getting benefit because this is something that normally give me some.
It's not you, it's the next one. What's the big deal?
It depends. It's two different cases, right? Right, that's what I'm saying. Guys would sell below market. People do that often. People sell below market value. They lose. They take a loss, right? They're willing to take a loss. I need to get this off my hands. I need cash flow. But there's pros and I understand. Right. There's a cost-benefit analysis. When you sometimes have to weigh the pros and cons, you're going to get some pros, but the cons could outweigh the pros. So that's not considered having benefit. Again, it's a very amuk sugya, but we're just trying to walk away with literally just understanding what the Gemara here is saying. But there definitely is depth over here. So the Gemara answers, it's not difficult. Shmuel's talking about that it's a zvina charifa. There's a high demand, so that's a nosekech, and we're talking about our Mishnah zvin deramelapi is low demand, so that's hanois meicher. Okay, the Gemara says, I'm not done with you. Because im kain, if that's the case, and I keep on going to Amabay because the rounds are on Amabay. He says, if that's the case, that you're telling me that Mishnah is talking about zvina deramelapi, that what? That it's a low demand, so it's hanois meicher. So wait a second, let's look at the other part of the Mishnah. Im reisha. The reisha said a case, and you have to help up with the cases. The ratio was talking about where it says, I'm not going to benefit from a Jew. Okay, you're not benefit from a Jew. So he said, what do you have to do? lekech b'yoser. So when you buy from a Jew, you have to overpay. So why do you have to overpay? Even if you buy for market value, you, as the buyer, are not having any benefit. Why not? It's the seller who's benefiting because it's a low demand. It's a buyer's market. So why do you have to go ahead if the Isser was benefiting from them, that the Jewish seller cannot have benefit? Why do you have to overpay? What do you mean? You could buy for market value, and even if you buy for market value, you're not giving. He's not benefiting anything at all. The seller's benefiting. So it's not. He's not benefiting from them. If he's making us of him to have benefit, he's not benefiting. That's what you told me. You told me the one who's having benefit is the meicher. Because you told me talking about the mission, talking about zvina d'Ram el ape, where it's a buyer's market. So the only one who's having benefit in the buyer's market is the seller. So why can't you buy for market value? So that says the Gemara. That's question number one. Question number two. Look at the Sefer of the Mishnah. Mishnah said, if let's say he takes a neder she'yisrael nenenli, that if he takes a neder where he's making himself he's forbidding his benefit on other Jews, we said, okay, if other Jews cannot have benefit from him, we said, lekech b'pachas, you have to buy below market value, and you have to charge them more than market value because you cannot give your benefit to them. Says the Gemara, if you're telling me that this is what's called low demand, if this is a buyer's market, sellers are desperate to sell, then a fila shava b'shava, and even to sell them for market value, where there's no benefit for the buyer at all, only for the seller. So why, when you're saying that you're not going to have benefit to them, that they can have benefit from you, you have to overcharge them? Why? Why can't you charge them market value? They're still not going to have benefit because the only one that has benefit is the seller. So why would you have to overcharge them? What do you mean? Even if he buys it for market value, he's not getting benefit. It's a buyer's market. I can get from anyone. I'm benefiting from you. So those are two questions on the Mishnah based on how you're answering that our Mishnah is talking about that it's a low demand. That's zvina d'Ram el ape. Oh, says the Gemara, no. Sefer, the Sefer of the Mishnah, which was prohibiting the benefit of his on other people, which in the case of selling, which was what we're asking from, of moiche b'yoser, the prohibition of benefit is on the buyer, that's bezvina charifa. That's talking about where actually there's a high demand. It's a seller's market. In other words, the Reish is telling us the halacha of zvina d'Ram el ape, when there's a low demand, when there's a buyer's market. The Sefer is telling us the halacha of zvina charifa, when it's actually a high demand and it's actually a seller's market. That's how the Gemara wants to say right now. But the Ran does point out that the Gemara still didn't answer the question, the first question, about why by the Reisha did we say that you have to buy more, you have to overbuy, you have to overpay. It's just answering the question on the Sefer, but we still didn't answer the question of the Reisha. So says the Gemara, wait a second, you still didn't answer the question. If that's the case, why did you tell me? Even in the case of the Sefer, you told me, Lekech b'pachais, when he says, I'm not benefiting any Jew, no Jew's going to benefit from me. So he said, okay, when you buy from them, you have to underpay because you don't want to benefit the Jewish seller who you say no Jew can have benefit from you. What are you talking about? Afila shava b'shava. Then even for the market value, you should be able to buy because Shmuel had said that when it's zvina charifa, when there's a high demand, who's benefiting is only the buyer and not the seller. And that's actually the whole halach of Shmuel that said that's why you have an einzin, because all the benefit is for the buyer. If all the benefit is for the buyer, why do you have to underpay? Why can't you just pay market value? They're not having benefit from you as selling it to you. So why would you have to be lekech b'pachas? So we have two questions that we're still struggling with. So the Gemara falls off of the approach of trying to answer the contradiction on Shmuel, that Shmuel is zvina charifa and our Mishnah is zvina d'Ram el ape. Ella rather says the Gemara to continue with Beis. Masnid, our Mishnah is what's called bezvina mitzvah. a medium grade, moderate demand. That, in other words, when you have a zvina mitzvah, a regular market, there's benefit to the seller and to the buyer. Okay, that's why when he prohibits the benefit of Jews on himself, that he's not going to benefit from the yidden, which is the ratio, we said he has to overpay and undersell so that he doesn't have benefit from anyone he's doing business with, whether he's buying or selling. When he prohibits his benefit on other Jews, which is the seifa, we said he has to underpay and oversell so that they don't benefit from him. Because by a moderate demand, when you sell for market value, both the seller and the buyer are considered having benefit. Whereas with the Shmuel, that he said all the hanos to lekech and not to the moicher, was bezvina charifa. Whereas when there is a high demand, then it's only the buyer who is benefiting, because that's what's called the seller's market. He doesn't have any benefit from this specific person. Now, the Rad just points out, he said, it appears to me, says the Rad, that the Gemara most definitely, when it originally tried to explain that our Mishnah is talking about this zvina derami alape, what's called this low demand, or when they tried saying subsequently that the Sefer was talking about zvina charifa when there's a high demand, the Gemara knew that you couldn't explain the Mishnah like this. It just wanted to go through the process to let us know these different categories and to tell us that when it's zvina derami alape, when there's a low demand, that's considered only the hana, the meicher, and not the buyer. And they wanted to let us know that by zvina charifa, when there's a high demand, then it's only benefit of the buyer and not for the seller. And then subsequently to let us know that by zvina mitzvah, by a moderate demand, then it's benefit of both of them. Again, when you sell it for shav b'shav, for market value, but when you sell it for more than the price, then even by a zvina charifa, even if it's a high demand and it's a seller's market, which we were saying all along is only the hanolekech, but if you overcharge, then it's going to be the hana, the meicher, and not the lekech. So let's say it's a seller's market and buyers are desperate to get out, but you charge the guy exorbitant amount, you charge him double the amount, that's going to be considered hana, the meicher, not lekech. And when you sell it below the price, in other words, that even by zvina derami lape, which is hana, the meicher, because the guy's desperate to sell, but then it's going to be hana of the lekeach and not of the meicher. When he sells it for below market value, you would say, okay, the seller is desperate to get rid of it, but it's only when he sells shava b'shava. So it's like, wow, he's getting all the benefit. I was able to get out, clean. I was able to get my asking price. But when he has to sell deep cuts into that, go 30% below, then it would be a benefit of lekeach, not the meicher. Says that's what the Gemara is coming out with from the sugya. Yeah, that shava b'shava, that's when we'll say whose hana it is. But if you overcharge, then the seller is going to get benefit. And if you underpay, then you're always going to be considered getting the benefit as the lekeach. Now, that was why we introduced this, teaching a Shmuel, just to show this point that when you buy, it's considered anos lekeach. But now the Gemara just concludes by showing that we agree with Tani Kabasei de Shmuel that it is the lekeach. Again, we qualified it's only by zvina charifa when there's a high demand, but we see like Shmuel that the lekeach is considered as kol ano shaloi, and therefore it's chayv and oinsin. What do we see? A brice like him, lekeach kelim and atagif. Someone purchases vessels from a merchant, and the reason why is l'shagel and beis chamav. He wants to send gifts to the in-laws. He wants to, get into their good favor. And he tells to the merchant, he says like this: if my in-laws like the gift, I'll pay for what their value is. If they don't like it, they're like, oh, sorry, we're not really into this, type of stuff. So he says, you know what I'll give you? I'll give you according to the benefit I'm getting out of it. In other words, my in-laws like, oh, you're so sweet. Wow, I can't believe that you actually said this. Really, when we don't really appreciate, we don't really go out and we don't do these types of things. So when I see, when I'm going to send it back to you, the vessels, I'll pay you for that amount of benefit that I get. It's still worth money, but I'll give you, and then I'll return the item to you. Now, says the Bryce like this: Nensu ba'alicha. Let's say something an oinus happened on the trip when it was being shipped to his in-laws. So chayiv, that son-in-law is going to be liable for the damages. Why? Because all the benefit is his. That's the halach of Shmuel, that a lekech is like a shav, because why? Well, he didn't buy it. It's like a shomer, but he's a shoyel shomer. because he's getting all the benefit. What do you mean all the benefit? What do you mean? The seller's getting money. Maybe you call it a shem sacher. No, you're a shayil, because the seller doesn't get any benefit. The buyer, when there's a high demand, and there's vin charifa, the seller's like, look, I could have sold this to anyone else. You got it. It's considered all your benefit, and therefore you chayiv in oinsin. Now, b'chazara, but let's say the in-laws didn't want it, and they're shipping it back, potter. Then actually it's going to be potter when oinus happens. Why? Nishu kanesi sacher. At that point already, he's like a paid custodian. And a paid custodian actually is potter from oinsin. But he would be chayiv if it was stolen or lost, let's say, en route in the postal service. He'd be chayiv like a shem sacher. Because the Gemara in Bava concludes that any shayil, after his term of borrowing has concluded, so it's over, I'm not a shayil anymore, he becomes a shem sacher until it's actually returned. Because since he had benefit, he'll benefit back to the guy who lent it to him, that I'll be like a shem sacher. Which is obvious from over there, from that brisa, that since on the way he's a shayil, on the way back, although he's not a shayil, and the should be a shem chinam, because I'm not getting anything out of it on the way back. No, the guy accepts that he'll be like a shem sacher, but he's not a shayil anymore, and therefore he'll be potter in oinsin. Now the Gemara, however, brings a story that seems to reflect on this halacha. There was a certain middleman, the shokal chamr lezvune, that he took wine to sell in the marketplace. In other words, the way these merchants used to do was they would buy animals for a set price, and they would stipulate with the owners that, look, if I don't find anyone to buy at the fair, at the marketplace, I'll give you back the animal. And this is how the Gemara explains in Perek Umnin, that just in different wording, the same exact halacha. Now, so this guy took wine to sell. He said, he went to the people, the balabatim, he said, hey, let me take your wine, I'll try to sell it. He wasn't able to sell it. But on his way back, the journey back, what happened was the wagon fell over, the whole thing tipped over, and isnis chamra, and the oinus happened to the wine, and all the wine got ruined. So Chayv Rav Nachman, Paskin, he has to pay to the owners the value of the wine. On that, it's Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman from the Bryce we just quoted before. What do you mean? We said that if someone has purchased someone's items on condition, that if he could sell it, if he could use it, he'll pay him. If not, he'll give it back to him. So he said that if there was an oinus on the way there, Chayv is Chayv. Bechazara potter, on the way back, you potter. What? Right. Why is this different? He didn't buy it. He says, if I sell it. He wasn't borrowing it. Yeah, but the same thing is, but I'm saying, what's the difference when you go to a store and you say, here, I want to buy this to my in-laws. You guarantee the product. If we're not happy, I can give it back. So I'm buying it. But if we don't want it, I'll give it back. You said on the way there, I'm chayiv. On the way back, I'm potter. Here also, I'm going to buy your wine. I'm going to sell it in the market. I'll make a fee. I'll charge 10%. I'll make more. If not, if I can't sell, I'll give it back to you. So why is it any different? Why are you being mechayiv this guy on the way back? So the Gemara has a very interesting answer. Amalei said to him, no. When a middleman is bringing it back, it's considered on the way there. In other words, it's just like when the son-in-law is sending it on the way to the in-laws. Why? Because the ilim mishakech lezvunei, if on the way back, he's in his truck, he's like, oh, what a terrible day, wasn't able to sell the wine. On the way back, if he finds someone who wants to buy it, afel above the base, say, even by the entryway of his house, wouldn't he sell it to him? That's considered hoylacha. It's not considered chazara, and therefore it's still considered kol hanoshalai, because till the last drop, he might be able to sell it, and therefore that's considered hanoshal, and therefore he's going to be chayiv on the way back too. Now we continue on halacha, the next Mishnah, again, continue on the same theme regarding when you say a terminology, who's included when we're talking about Yidden and Goyim. So the Mishnah says, let's say someone says, Kohen, I take a neder, she'ani neder la'reilim, that if I'm going to have any benefit from someone who's an oral, who's uncircumcised. So mutabarili, so it's actually permitted to have benefit from an uncircumcised Jew, which sounds interesting. You just told me you're forbidden to have from an oral. You're allowed to have from an oral Yisrael. But v'asa b'mei lev d'kachavim, you're forbidden to have benefit from a non-Jew who's circumcised, which is weird because you only took from oral, not circumcised. Now, let's say you say shani neder l'maylam, the other way around, says that I'm taking neder and not going to benefit from someone who's circumcised. So asa b'mei Yisrael, you're forbidden to have from a Yisrael that's oral, but you're still permitted by a non-Jew who's circumcised. Because as the Mishnah explains, oral or not is not in action, it's actually a category. We refer to an oral it refers to the category of the idol worshippers. That even if they're circumcised, they're called arelim. They're called uncircumcised. Like it says the pasuk in Yirmiyah. It says kikol hagoyim, because all the nations are arelim, are uncircumcised, even if they have circumcised people. Kol Beis Yisrael arelev, whereas all the Jewish people are uncircumcised of the heart. Like it says the pasuk in Shmuel Aleph, Plishti, referring to Goliath, ha'oral hazeh, that this Philistine, this uncircumcised one, which the Ran says, because if he would only come from the first pasuk, you could reject it, and you could say, when do we say kol hagoyim arelim? We mean orlei lev, we mean the uncircumcised of the heart, and that's actually what the end of the pasuk says, that all the Jewish people are uncircumcised of the heart, just like them. So therefore, the Mishnah brings another pasuk and says, no, Plishti oral hazeh, that when David was calling Goliath an oral, even though he didn't know if he was born circumcised or not, still you see that they're called arelim. If you're going to say maybe it's not so common that a guy would be born circumcised, and therefore that's why he presumed that Goliath was an oral, and that wouldn't prove that every non-Jew is considered as an oral. So this, the Mishnah brings another pasuk. It says a pasuk in Shmuel Beis. It says, Pentis machena b'nais Palishtim, maybe you, the daughters of the Philistines, are going to rejoice. Pentaleizna b'nais arelim, maybe you're going to be happy, the daughters of the uncircumcised, which, as the Ran explains, it's not possible for such a large nation like the Philistines that there shouldn't be many men that were born circumcised. And even so, we're calling the whole nation b'nais arelim, because we see they're always called arelim, even when they're circumcised, and therefore arelim refers to goyim, and moilim refers to yidden, whether or not they're circumcised or not. Now, the Mishnah continues with Agadic teachings regarding bris milah. It says, it's so repulsive, the foreskin, the uncircumcised, that that wicked people are disgraced with that terminology. Like it says in the pasuk we just quoted before, when Hashem wants to talk derogatory about the nations, he calls them the uncircumcised ones. Shmuel says, how great a circumcision, that it was cut on it, 13 covenants, which, as the Ran explains, by the Parsha Milah by Avram Avinu, it says 13 times the word bris to tell us there are 13 brises. Rabbi Yosem says, how great is Milah, that it even overrides the severe halachas of Shabbos, because it says on the 8th day you're going to circumcise, which Bayom tells us even if that day is Shabbos. Shimon Karcham says, how great is circumcision, Aleha, we usually call him Moshe Rabbeinu. We see that it wasn't suspended for Moshe, the righteous one, on it. Maloisha, even for a moment, right away when he was lacking in performing, the Malach tried to kill him for not having done the bris milah. He says, how great is milah? That even pushes away the isser of a nega, because there's a prohibition of cutting off a tzaras from a person's skin. In spite of that, it says, Yimol Basar Lasa, you should circumcise the flesh of the foreskin, that even if there's a beheris over there, you cut it off. Rabbi Yomi says, how great is Milah Shekala Mitzvah Sha'as Avram Avinu. From all the mitzvah Avram Avinu did, he was not called complete until he circumcised, because only when Hashem commanded him on the Milah did Hashem say, Shenema Hishalach Lafanai, go in front of me, and then you'll be whole. You see, that's only with the Milah that a person is considered whole. Another interpretation, how great is circumcision, that if not for it, HaKadosh Baruch would not have created his world. Like it says the pasuk in Yirmiyah, Hashem, so says Hashem, if not for my covenant, for the bris, day and night, the statutes of heaven and earth I would not have placed, the world was only created for the mitzvah bris milah. Now, some Gemaras have, and which is actually the Gersa brought in the Ein Yaakov, that, and the Ran obviously had the Gersa too. Rabbi Yomi, he says, how great is circumcision, shishkula keneged kol mitzvahs, that is the equivalent of all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Like it says the pasuk in Shemais, hine dam. What does the pasuk there say? It says, hine dam habris, like the Ran brings. Behold, the blood of the covenant, shekaras, etc. It says over the alkol hadvar. Now the Ran points out, although that dam is not the dam of meal, it's a dam of a carbon, but since in the entire Torah it says bris, and by meal it also says bris, so we see the mitzvah of milah is shokol, that dam of the bris is also going to be al-kol hadvarim, it's going to be equivalent of all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Now, just like the Mishnah, the Gemara brings a Tanya Braisa that also elaborates on similar types of teachings. Rabbi Shua ben Karch says the same idea. One of the things we said, Gedol Milah, greatest circumcision, from all the merits that Moshe Rabbeinu did, it didn't stand him in good stand when he was not performing the milah of his son Eliezer. Like it says the pasuk in Shemais. If Yeshua Hashem encountered him, Yivakash Misa wanted to kill him. Which Amar Rebbe qualifies, says, wait a second. Chas v'shalom, Moshe Rabbeinu sasham l'mila. Heaven forsake that we would say that Moshe, our teacher, was negligent in performing the circumcision. But he said like this: Emel ve'etze? Why I should circumcise my son and then go out, which Hashem told me to go to Mitzrayim and redeem the Jewish people? Sakani, it's danger. If I'm going to travel with him 3 days, for the first 3 days of bris milah, the child's in pain. Somebody says a pasuk in Bereshis. But he was on the third day, that we know by Shechem that the brothers of Dinah went and they wiped out the city. So the Ran says, not to say that day 3 is more pain than the first day. The reason why Shimon and Levi waited to day 3 is that they should be very weak, because they've been in pain for already 3 days. It's not like the pain is more on day 3. You're pain day 1, day 2, and day 3. You're already in pain 3 days. You're already, so weak, as the Gemara is obvious from Shabbos Daf Kaf Lamed Daled. But one thing we see that for the first 3 days, the child's very weak and it would be dangerous. So I can't do that. So what do you say? Emel, I should circumcise v'eshesh l'shem. I should wait 3 days and only then leave. But Hashem said to me, go return to Mitzrayim. So says Rebbe, so why would Moshe punish that the Malach tried to kill him if he had no choice? Because when he was taking his lodgings, he first was engaged in the lodging. Shneimah says a pasuk in Shemais. It was on the road, in the inn, in the lodging. That's where the pasuk says. Now, the Ran says it sounds like that. Okay, right when he came from the journey, he was first engaged in getting himself a room. He should have done the circumcision first. But says the Ran, wait a second. How could he do the circumcision? He was stopping in some hotel on the way. He still wasn't in Mitzrayim, so it's still going to be dangerous. Says the Ran, that Malone was very near to Egypt, and such a short journey would not be so dangerous, and therefore that was not a problem. But the Gemara says one final point. So therefore, again, that's what he was punished for, because he didn't do the circumcision right away. Shmuel, he says, no, it wasn't that for Moshe Rabbeinu that the Satan wanted to kill. It was that child, the baby, Eliezer. It says over there in the pasuk that it says that Tzipora took a rock and she cut off the foreskin of her son, and it fell to his feet. And she said, Ki chasan dam matali, because you're a groom of blood, you are for me. Which say to A, go out and see who's called the groom over here. It's the child. He became, so to speak, a chasan through the bris, and that's who the Satan wanted to kill, because he didn't have the bris, and that's who it's referring to, not to Moshe. Thank you to any time post this.